We are so excited today to introduce you to our guest speaker. She's an endurance runner whose highlights include the Marathon des Sables, I can't say it properly, I'm sure she'll correct me, Sables, which I have to say is a 6-day, 156-mile ultra marathon. Incredible. She's also breaking a 12-hour treadmill world record in 2016. And to be honest, she's completed all the world's major marathons. She enjoys local races and park runs, and she's no stranger to being interviewed on TV, radio, and podcasts. And all this, and she's local to Borden. She's a resident here too. And today she's really here to inspire us with her journey and to give you an insight to her mindset and motivation, what keeps her going. I'd love you all to give a good welcome to UK's top ultra athlete, Susie Chan. Come on in, Susie.
Come on in, join us.
There she is. Good morning.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Yeah, we're good. It's just amazed, doing some research and seeing what you've achieved. It's just incredible, Susie. So yeah, huge congratulations. And we're really excited to hear what your insights and things.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me along. I'm really delighted because I've been in Borden. So I lived in Farnham and I made the move over to Borden 2 years ago, and quite early on where there was a lot of development still hadn't happened. And from our little new build house, we've been watching the community slowly grow, and it's just, I'm so delighted to be invited on. So thank you so much for having me. And also a big shout out to the first thing I did actually was to find out if I wanted to move here was I went to the local park run, which is in Hogmore, and it's a free weekly under normal circumstances 5k run. And I came along then, everybody was so friendly, and I was like, yes, I want to live here.
Wow, amazing. I tell you what, I have signed up for that park run. I've never actually been, but I've got the email to say that I can go.
Yeah, see you there. Exactly. I'll hold you to that one.
I'm not a runner myself, but I have done a marathon once, but they changed it to Snickers now.
You can come along and volunteer instead.
From the sidelines. But no, thank you for coming today, Susie. Now, the structure for today is we're going to find a little bit about how you got into running, a little bit about your past, then we'll talk about what you're doing now, and then maybe some insights into what you're planning, what you've got coming up, and things that you want to achieve. So Lou, let's get going with that first question.
So the first question I've got to ask you, you've been running for 10 years, I believe, Susie. Can you tell us what you did before you were a runner?
So I haven't been, I came to running quite late. I started running at the grand old age of 35. But prior to that, when I was a child, I was a bit of a geek. I like history. I'm a bit of a history geek. And from the age of 8, I can remember, I decided I wanted to work in a museum. And I wanted to work in the best museum in the country, which was the British Museum. So I set about achieving that goal, and I went to university, did art history, and very, very luckily for me, I went straight from university. I don't know how they picked me into a job at the British Museum, where I worked for 8 years, looking after, I started out in coins and medals, and then I went from coins and medals over to the Department of Asia. So I was looking after Ming vases, Buddhas. I created some of the galleries that are still there in the British Museum today. And I went on from there to become all things exhibitions in London. So I worked at the Hayward Gallery in the South Bank Centre, and then on at University College London. So fortunate enough it's a completely different environment, and it's one which is very based in London if you want to work in that sort of environment. So I specialised in putting on exhibitions, so gathering antiquities from all over the world, building the cases and the special environments which those objects needed to be looked after in, looking after the objects themselves. And I've got some great stories from my museum days, putting things on exhibition. We had to take things across the globe on exhibition. So I'd have to take a mummy, put it on display in Tokyo or in New York or that sort of thing. So I traveled the world with some very old objects. I absolutely loved my job. I absolutely loved what I did. It was a really nice environment to work in, and I was always the most stupid person there because everybody was very academic. They were all specialities in their subject, and I was just the doer. And I just met some really interesting people, and I just learned so much. So in my new life, I don't have a lot less of that. So in my spare time now, I quite like to acquire, I like quizzes, I quite like to acquire knowledge and things which sort of stimulate my brain academically.
It's an incredible mindset that you must have had. So from being 8 years old to say what you wanted to do, keeping that mindset going, keeping that focus driven.
Well, I tell you what it was. I can remember exactly what it was. And if you're older like me, you'll remember a program called Dempsey and Makepeace, which was about two police. It was like an American woman. Anyway, and then she left the police force in one episode and was working at the Natural History Museum. And it never occurred to me that, you know, people could work in this environment, like really immersed in history. And I've always been a history geek. I love history. I read historical books. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And I think a few things came and went from the age of 8 up to the age of 18, but pretty much it always came back to wanting to be in that sort of slightly older world environment.
Yeah, brilliant.
Excellent. So you're now sort of an endurance runner. Why did you choose running versus any other sport?
I didn't choose, running chose me. I know that's so naff to say, but it's true. I didn't decide this was going to happen to me. This has somehow just happened to me. So I lived in Farnham, and I was commuting up to London in my job. I was a single mum at the time, and I was in a bit of I was 35. I was divorced. I was in a bit of a life rut. I was just sort of moping around, not really doing very much, watching like terrible TV, drinking lots of cheap wine. You know, I was just sort of like just kind of in a bit of a midlife rut. And my younger brother was doing a marathon. So this was his bucket list goal. He had like a life bucket list of things to tick off. One of them was to complete a marathon. I'd never even contemplated running in my life. And he wanted to do the local half marathon, Farnham Pilgrims half marathon. So he'd signed up for it. It was like, you need to do this. And I was like, I don't think so. I used to smoke. I was like, I'm all right running, thank you. And he basically cajoled me into it. So I signed up, and I thought, okay, I could better myself. I could get a little bit fitter here. And I can remember going for my first run, which was, I tried to run around 2 football pitches, and I couldn't do it. I was sort of out of breath. I went off too fast. I was stopping and starting, and it was awful basically. But I already signed up, so I thought, well, I've got to keep going. So I just built it up and built it up, like anybody who starts running. And I turned up to that race absolutely terrified, because everybody looked like they knew what they were doing. Everybody looked like, you know, they were a proper runner. I didn't even have running shoes on. I had gym shoes on. I had an underwire bra on, so I didn't own any proper sports gear. I had no clue.
It can be really intimidating though, can't it, when you turn up?
I nearly went home. It was so intimidating. I was just like, oh my good God, I don't know, what am I doing here? But fortunately we arrived quite late, so I had about 10 minutes to panic, and then it was like, go. And then this was where the weird thing happened. I started running, and it's like, okay, I'm not dying, I'm not dead. I got to about 9 miles, and I actually did think I was about to die, because I'd been running up and down the road from in Farnham, and this half marathon was something called a trail half marathon, and I didn't even know what that meant. But basically that means you're not running on the road, you're running like through the woods, you're jumping over stiles, you're going through muddy puddles, and you're going up and down huge hills, which I'd done none of. And I didn't know. I think I wouldn't have done it if I knew that it was going to be like that. I started running, and all these things kept happening, and I kept sort of like, oh, okay, I'm doing this, is happening. And then I got to 9 miles, and I realized that I was actually going to finish. I hadn't run further than about 9 miles before in my life. And I was like, oh my, I might actually finish. And I felt this kind of rush of endorphins, and I just suddenly really felt strong. And I finished the race, and I'd never felt that way about something I had done. I felt really proud, and I was just so amazed I'd run 13 miles. And I woke up next day, I could barely get out of bed, I could barely walk. I can remember wincing stepping up a curb. But I was like, I've run that half marathon, and it just lit the torch paper. It just lit something in me, and I just went all in. I signed up for another one. I signed up for 10Ks, because I could do 10K. I've just run a half marathon. And then it escalated very rapidly from there into ultra marathons, which I didn't even know that there was even things like that you could run like in the Sahara Desert. I had no idea that would happen. So basically, and then I just started running, and I really enjoy running, and I really did enjoy how running made me feel. So I kind of found it by accident is the answer. I didn't choose it, and I'm really glad I found it.
Can you talk us through some of the challenges that you may have found, like in that journey, like what sort of and how you overcame those challenges?
I could do that in two ways. I could talk about actual physical races I've done, and I could talk about it in other ways. So I'll start off with the physical races. So I don't quite know where this is going to end. My races have got longer and longer, and the environments have got tougher and tougher. So I'm sort of known for running in very hot climates. So I've run across the Sahara Desert. I've done that 4 times. I've run in Death Valley, which was unbelievably hot. We measured the temperature just above the tarmac, and it was 76 degrees Celsius. It was just insane. It was packed with ice. And I've run, and actually the toughest environments I have done have been jungle environments. So I've run self-sufficient, which means I have to carry everything I need to survive for the week. So all of my food, all of my sleeping gear, and anything else, any luxury, where there aren't any luxuries, maybe one extra pair of socks. I've run through the Amazon rainforest from the Andes all the way down to the Amazon basin, sort of putting my hammock up in the jungle.
So a challenge there for me immediately. I'm thinking like the bugs and the spiders and all of that. That must be like, how do you get over all of that?
I hate spiders. I hate bugs. Honestly, they fill me with horror. I've seen a lot of snakes. I don't mind snakes so much. Monkeys, you had to sort of tie your bag so the monkeys can steal your bag. I don't mind. The wildlife was, I did not like the spiders. The honest truth is they terrify me. Even now, I don't like spiders. So I just basically had to completely block that out of my mind. And then there was one race I did in Costa Rica where there was this was horrible. They were like, oh, and then you go through Tarantula Alley. And I was like, excuse me, what
in the name there, Susie? The clue is in the name.
Basically, we had to run through all these tarantula nests. I think it was the fastest I've ever run in my life. I do not like bugs. I do not like spiders. And that it was mentally, I had to really block that out. And you kind of, day 1, you're just hypersensitive to everything. Like, what is that? And then by day 3, you're sort of desensitizing slowly. So I've done lots of challenges physically. I run 100 miles without stopping. I've done that about 4 times. I've done I've run around a 400-meter track for 24 hours without stopping. So those ones, they're all mental challenges I set myself, and I know it's really hard to explain why I do these things, but it is really hard to articulate. But I don't quite know where this ends. And what's really interesting to me is to find out, each time I set myself this goal, I break it down, I do the race, and then afterwards you get a real buzz, and then it's like, what's next? What's next? So there's been lots of physical difficulties, but then also for me personally, there's been, as anybody who does any physical training realize, there are definitely ups and downs. There are times where you're flying and you feel super fit, and there are times where it's raining, you just don't want to get out of bed, or you've injured yourself slightly, or for me, I've had a couple of big health setbacks in the last couple of years. I had cancer in 2018, which was a bit of a shock. So that was a bit of it was more of a, for me, that was more of a mental setback, because I imagined myself to be super fit. Turns out I wasn't. And so I sort of came back from that. So there's been lots of different challenges along the way, but the one consistency through it all has been the running, which has been a very positive focus in my life, and a very positive thing to put my energy into.
Yeah, brilliant. Wow.
Just to bring things up to the present date, Susie, how do you transition from working at the British Museum and being in that kind of, as you said, it's like a little bubble, a world of itself. You transitioned into running. How do you then transition into a career as a runner? There doesn't seem to be like a job you can go and do. Do you just go to a race and how do you do it?
I don't know, Stuart. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know how this is happening. If I'm being really honest with you, this was not by design. There was no strategy. This just sort of happened to me. And so I was in my museum career, you know, and I really enjoyed it. It was really stimulating. And then I was doing the running on the side. So some of the races I did involved, obviously, you can imagine, quite a lot of training. And so I would sort of get off the train, you know, 10 miles out from London and run to work, and then running my lunch. And so I was like really squeezing the training around my work, and turning up to meetings increasingly sweatier, and like the shower would drop for an extra mile, you know. And then my colleagues just got, oh, it's Susie, she just, you know, they got, you know, she'll run 70 miles this weekend, just don't worry about her. And what happened was, I started to document what I was doing online, and this is sort of, we're talking 10 years, so Instagram's been around for about 12 years. So I started documenting these things that I was doing, and some of those races I've told you about, the ones through the desert and the jungles, very few women 10 years ago did these things. There were hardly any women. It was a very male sport, and also I think in a lot of ways viewed as quite inaccessible. And I just started in my own way. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing, just saying, oh, I'm just having a go at running 40-mile race. I don't know what I'm doing, you know. And I started documenting it all online, and it just got a bit of traction. It just galvanized a little bit, and I started writing a blog about it. And then I think I just hit the timing right. With social media started to have a rise. Park Run, which I really do credit, came about, and I think, as we all know, there's thousands of them up and down the country. Park Run enabled everybody, if you were sporty or not sporty, to take part in running, and lots of communities to come together and take part in running. And that in itself saw an upswing in the popularity of running, and in turn that then generated more races and more people taking part in races. I can't tell you the stats, but I mean, there's some staggering statistics in how Park Run and the increase in running has grown in the last 10 years. And I was just sort of swept along in this wave, popping out on top of the little female ultra marathon one. There were not very many women doing it, and I was sort of bumbling my way through. And at some point along that journey, it became clear, you know, I was doing my full-time job. I was you know, flying off on Friday night to go and do a race somewhere, running, I don't know, 100 miles, whatever, and then coming back to work on Tuesday. I wasn't really giving both my full attention, and I just got a sponsorship opportunity, just came out of the blue, and I just took the plunge. It wasn't enough financially to cover me off in terms of what I was earning in London. However, I was quite nervous because I only ever had a monthly salary. But I had my husband then, and it was like this, you know, at my age, I was 41 years old. Like, these opportunities to be a sponsored athlete do not come about, women of my age. So I took the plunge, and fortunately with that, a lot of other work came in. I started commentating at races, and professionally speaking, and then I became the main host of a big national running, it's called the National Running Show, and then I hosted the National Outdoor Show. And so I just started to pop up and to contribute articles into Runner's World, and then the rise of podcasts, and I became a sort of go-to person for women and women running a long way. And it's been absolutely great, and it's, you know, I've picked up a big clothing sponsor and other sponsors along the way, and it's been very it hasn't at all been strategic. It's just been very organic in how it's grown. And I do genuinely wake up and think, how have I got here? And now my you know, I sustain myself through those sponsors, through social media, and collaborating with sports brands and brands on different things.
I think that will resonate a lot with the entrepreneurs, the business owners from the BiZHUB and the attendees. Things tend to happen slightly organically, and you make that plunge and you're like, oh, and then suddenly all these opportunities open up. And I think it's a twofold thing. One, your brain is now looking for those opportunities.
Yes.
And
yes.
Two, those opportunities are looking for somebody like you. So
yeah,
they come together. So
terrifying. It was so terrifying because I'd only ever known a world where I went in 9 to 5 and I got a salary at the end. And I'm not really a risk taker financially, because I think because I was a mother, and I had struggled financially in the past, and it just made me incredibly nervous to be self-employed. And actually, it was really, once I took the plunge, it was really freeing. And then two of the most terrifying things happened to me when I did that. I was 6 months into this, and then my husband got made redundant from his quite nice job, and I got cancer, and I was like, oh my God. And then what actually happened was, it was fine. It was fine. You know, he got another job, and I was fine. And you know, if I knew those two things were going to happen, there's no way I would have resigned from my job. And it just taught me that actually, when you're out there, exactly what you said, when you're out there in that situation, you are looking for the opportunities, and you are creating opportunities yourself and engaging with people. And for me, I always, you know, I get approached by lots of people, and I meet lots of people at races or different environments, and I don't know what they do for a living. And I'm always, it's always polite and courteous, and what do you do? Just always learning. And it's a two-way thing, because you never know where those opportunities are going to come up. I can think of several examples, but one was, I just had one random person commented on Strava, which is a sort of fitness social media app, and where you log all your fitness. It was just one comment, and it turned out he was the CEO of an absolutely huge charity. And I ended up working with them for 6 months on something. You know, I just responded, and then we just got chatting. You know, it's just, and I had no clue that tiny one sentence would develop into a 6-month working relationship. So
I think also, when you're so passionate about something, you put yourself out there because you're interested, you want to know, you're passionate, you want to, you know, you upload onto Instagram. I mean, when you were uploading onto your Instagram in the first instance, were you thinking about it from a business opportunity, or were you just like, I'm just going to put this out there because Instagram's a new platform and I want to show people what I'm doing?
Yeah, I mean, when I scroll back to some of my early posts, I'm like, picture of my cat. I did mindfully become at some point, I did decide, because it was just like Instagram, me and my life. I just actually said, right, I'm going to actually focus this on my running journey. And and there were a couple of rules I set myself, and it wasn't necessarily with a view to get sponsorship. It was more just of a way of portraying myself, and people can see me. And it was all very authentic. If I had a day where I wanted to run further and I didn't, because I just didn't feel like it, I said that, you know, this is because that's real. That's everybody. Yeah. Everybody has those days, and so I was just very real with my output, and then I set kind of like boundaries for myself. I don't really, I do swear in my real life, but I don't swear on social media. I just kind of made it like a place. I didn't, you know, if I got a parking ticket or whatever, not that I'd ever not pay for my parking, but I never made it a negative space. I made it a very positive space, and that kind of went with my mindset as I was on my running journey. It was so much easier going through life focusing on the positives. And so I just made it all about looking forward and looking for the best things in life.
Well, they say that if you have a positive mindset, you see opportunities as opposed to obstacles. And I think that's really true, isn't it? Is that, you know, going through life with that positive energy. Yes. What do you think that businesses can learn from elite athletes?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, without being an elite athlete, so, I mean, there's several ways we could break this down. I think one thing I've learned is that don't think you can't do it, because you can do it. If you want something enough, it can happen. So don't limit yourself by what other people think you can do, because if I did, I wouldn't have run that first half marathon. Apart from my brother, I wouldn't have run a marathon, because some of the things I've done, you know, even like close family members are like, I wouldn't do that. But I don't think you can do that. You know, so don't be limited by expectation. Create your own expectation. And you know, at the start line of some of these races I've done, you look at the field of people. Everybody's not like super skinny racing snakes. They're all different ages, all different demographics, and all different shapes and sizes. And they all have one thing in common, and that is they want to finish. And the Marathon des Sables, for example, there's 1,000 people do that race. So at one time I was running neck and neck with a 65-year-old grandma. She was, and there's people that start that. And there's another time I did that race, and there was a guy, and he hadn't run a marathon. He hadn't walked further than 13 miles and he finished it. And the thing that all these people have in common is they really want that end goal. So don't be limited would be my first thing I would say. And the second thing is more of a sort of strategy. When I ran my first 100-mile race, I couldn't even look at the route on a map because it terrified me to my very core, because I ran from London to Oxford along the Thames, and just looking at it on a map, I was like, I don't even want to drive that far. How can I run that far? And so I filled me with panic. That the end goal, the whole thing as an entirety, filled me with total panic. And so I didn't look at it anymore. I just thought about it in small chunks and little achievable goals. And when it came to race day, in those sorts of races, we have something called checkpoints, which are approximately every 10K, every 6 miles. And so just you've got an end goal, that's your dream, break it down into achievable things. So I was always thinking about the next 4 miles. I wasn't thinking I'm going to be doing this for 24 hours because I'll die. Giving yourself achievable goals, and then making sure when you've done that thing, you reward yourself, no matter how you recognize it, no matter how big or how small it is. So, okay, this week I'm going to sort out my filing. I mean, I did my tax return. Very pleased. I did it a week ahead of schedule. I've done it already. Acknowledge the small wins. So when I'm running, it's like, I don't want to run today. Okay, I've got out and run 3 miles. Make sure you are looking back and seeing how far you've come, and that gives you confidence to go forward.
I know, we can certainly resonate with that. I mean, you probably heard that in our introduction we talked about wins, and we do that at the BiZHUB just to, to say celebrate your wins. It doesn't matter what they are, celebrate them. Pat yourself on the back. And if you haven't got a win, you've got a learning. So if you haven't won, you've learned. And I think it's really true. So it's really interesting to hear from your perspective of what you do, and breaking it down into small chunks. We also say that in business, don't we, Stu?
No, absolutely.
You've got a big goal, break it down, eat an elephant piece by piece, that kind of like theory. So yeah, that's really interesting.
I think one of the things that Susie mentioned there that really helps is to have that end goal. And in business, sometimes people get into business, but they want to grow their business. That's fine. They want an income. That's great. But that business can be so much more. But what do you want to do with it? And if you don't have that goal, you just kind of, it's a bit like running. If you don't have a goal for your journey, you just run around the block.
Yeah.
Having a goal, you can then break it down into, I've got to do this and this and this and this to get to that. So it's really fascinating to hear that you approach it in the same way. Yeah,
it's exactly the same. It is exactly the same. And even in the last year, which has obviously been very testing for all of us, there have been no races. They've all been cancelled. But for me, I've had to, I've set myself my own kind of monthly targets and things to do, and it doesn't matter. So those goals, I think it's really great to have that big medal prize at the end, but also little goals along the way. But I just wanted to touch on something you said about failure. So obviously some of my races have not gone according to plan. I mean, that's just, again, it's just the way of the world. Your body, when you're running for like 12 hours or 20 hours, whatever, you're not really going to figure out how it's going to go. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But to your point about it's always learning. So I never, if I've run races where it's been a 10K and I've wanted to get a particular time, haven't quite hit that time, younger me would have been quite annoyed or really dwelled on, why am I not working hard enough? Why do that? And now, as I've got a little bit older and matured, for me, I always take away, it's a learning curve, exactly what you said. And it's always like, what are the positives? And for me, I always think, okay, if that didn't go according to plan, or that wasn't quite how I wanted, but it was the best me on that day. And I don't dwell on the negatives. It's like, well, that was the best I could do on that day, and I tried my best, and that was my best today. And it's, for me, it's always thinking about positives and learning from those experiences.
Yeah. As it's Mindset and Motivation Month, and the title or the subtitle of this talk is what gets you up in the morning? What drives you and motivates you to keep getting up and to keep, on a really cold, miserable day? I know you've got I've seen your running space in your garage. Looks fantastic, actually. But what gets you up in the morning?
It's very, my dogs normally, I'm looking at them now. To be honest with you, it's a real mix. It's a real mix. And normally when my motivation ebbs a little bit, I kind of go back to basics. That I always, no matter what day it is, no matter what I'm feeling like, know for a fact that I will feel better once I've actually been running. And it doesn't matter if that's, you know, just 20 minutes or 2 hours, whatever it is, I always feel better. Like I talked about my tax return, like I knew it was looming, I had to do it, and when it's done, I felt so much better. So for me, I'm one of these people that like to get up and get things done. So I try not to overthink, oh, it's really rainy, I'm going to get wet, it's cold. I just try not to overthink it, just do it. And often I found that it's the doing part is actually nowhere near as bad as the anticipation of the doing, which is always worse when you're lying in bed listening to the rain. But if you're out running in it, actually it can be quite nice. But then when under normal circumstances, when my motivation wanes a little bit, I do feed off of the community. So I will often meet friends or people. I used to in large groups, but now less so. I'll meet like a friend to run. And I know if I've said to them, I'm going to meet you at 10 o'clock and we're going to run 6 miles, then I'll meet them and I will go running. And that really helps me. And just taking it back to fun and having it just being about being with my friend and just moving along. So it's a bit of variety. And then also my dogs. I've got a dog, a rescue dog. He came into our life. I've got 3 dogs, and he basically will try and dig a hole through my floor unless I take him out for a run. So he's been getting me out too.
What you said there, it's that accountability, isn't it? I always find as well that if you say to somebody, I'm going to meet you here, and I'll do it, then you actually do it. And so it's really important to have that sort of accountability almost, isn't it? That you're not accountable for them, but yeah, exactly. It makes you go out and do it. So yeah, that is very true.
I heard something recently, and it's really resonated with me, and I've started applying it, and it was motion before emotion. So don't think about how you feel about doing it, just get on and do it. And that ties in with one of Lou's favorite books, which is the Eat a Frog.
Eat That Frog.
Eat That Frog. Yeah,
it's a really good book to read.
You've got to eat a frog every day. Do it first thing, because then it's done and you don't have to think about it. And that completely goes with, you know, get your tax return done and you feel better.
Yeah, it does. On the mindset and motivation, how do you handle stress and pressure preparing for a big race? Because I can imagine probably the pressure that you put on yourself is quite enormous anyways, trying to set your times and doing it as your profession. You've probably got those stresses as well. So how do you deal with that? How do you manage that?
It is quite hard. I think for me, the shorter the race, the more stressed I get. I do get, if I think I'm going to run as hard as I possibly can in parkrun, I get stressed. And my husband properly laughs at me. He's like, why are you getting stressed at this 10K run? Like, you run 100 miles. For me, the stress comes if there's any time performance, which I've set myself, because I think a couple of people I think I know from parkrun who are here today will know I'm not the fastest person. I mean, there are lots of people, if you see me in Hogwarts Parkrun, that will beat me. So I'm not necessarily the fastest person, but I put these sort of benchmarks on myself sometimes. So the shorter the distance, the more stressed I get. And weirdly, if I'm going to run 50 miles or 100 miles, I'm actually fine, because, you know, I've got a long time to think about things. But it is difficult. It is quite difficult. It is quite difficult, and I just try and put my mind in the positive space. So it's always thinking about the end goal and the positive things I've felt, or, you know, I've really worked hard for this in training. This is where I'm meant to be. I think about the finish and how completing it will make me feel. So it's really just focusing on the upside. And also, you know, a real true reminder is that I don't think anybody cares really ultimately if I run slowly or don't run as fast, or you know, it's me putting it on myself and recognizing. It's
kind of putting that into perspective, isn't it? And thinking about the great.
So, as I've got a bit older, I've got a lot better at it. I mean, you know, sort of, maybe 8-9 years ago, I used to be quite stressed at the start of races, but you know, it still can be quite, you know, stood at the start line with lots of people waiting for a gun to go off. I mean, it is quite an adrenaline.
That's huge.
But going back to that point, which I think we've all made, that the anticipation is always worse than the reality of it. And so once I get going, I can settle in and it's fine. But it's just keeping a check on that. I've run with my friend's an Olympian, and I've had to interview a few Olympians, and I always ask them that question. You know, that moment where you stood in the Olympic stadium, this is like you've trained for 4 years and you're waiting for how do you cope? Because it's fascinating. That's proper stress. You know, there's me just trying to run fast and park run, and then there's that.
I think they probably do it similarly though, surely. I mean, when you've asked them that question,
just focus and clearing your mind, and just emptying your mind, and not worrying about what everybody else is doing or what you think they are. You know, they're wearing those, and why, you know, why has he got that with him for? And it's just emptying your mind and focusing on what my plan is, and you know, I've made my plan, and this is what I'm going to focus on, and not worrying about not getting distracted by everybody else.
I was lucky enough to spend some time with Ben Hunt Davis once, and he spoke about his rowing career and the Adelaide Olympics. And the previous Olympics, they had really got creamed. They'd done really badly, and they got bad press. And they made a pact amongst themselves that they would spend the next 4 years only doing things that made the boat go faster. So going out on a Friday night with your friends, nope. If that meant you weren't 100% training on a Saturday morning, it didn't make the boat go faster. And he said, so you're going to ask me, Ben, what's it like at an Olympic stadium, that opening ceremony to represent your country? And he said, I don't know, I watched it on telly. He said, because we all agreed that before a major sporting event like the Olympics, we wouldn't go and spend 2 hours standing in a cold stadium the night before a qualifying race. And it's just that focus of, I've got to turn up for myself because I've made a commitment to me and my teammates. So I get that. I get that pressure.
They're very, very, very. I've got a couple of friends that are training for the Olympics right now, and I mean, they think what I do is mad because they're runners, but they run shorter distances. And I think what they do is just the dedication is just astounding. Actually, that is a real mindset thing. To get to the Olympics, you have got to be 100% all in for years. So I mean, I probably wouldn't sacrifice a night out with my mates, even if I have got a race. It's all about balance for me. It's all about balance.
Can I just ask you how you wind down mentally after a race? Because it must be that euphoria, you know, you've talked about it before, the interjection of the adrenaline and the cortisol and all the endorphins and everything. And then it's over. It's a bit like, oh, now what? So how do you talk us through how you wind down?
Normally I'm knackered anyway, but it does involve carbohydrates generally. I just put myself in a I will, I'm normally physically quite tired, so I will probably have a beer and a pizza.
Oh, lovely.
I'll have a nice big dinner and then lie down. But then there's been a couple of races where I have done, where I've literally, I've tried to go to so for example, my first 100-mile race, you finish at some point early morning, and so you've missed a whole night's sleep, and then you obviously need your body telling you need to go to sleep, and it's the middle of the day, and you can fall asleep, and you wake up, and then it's very fitful, and your legs kind of keep kicking sometimes in your sleep, so it can be fitful sleep and not very restful. But basically, physically I'm tired enough to do nothing, and I just normally watch something really mind-numbing on TV, or just have a look at my social media and just eat pizza and have beer.
Yeah, it is hard to switch the mind off though sometimes, isn't it? I'm normally tired, so that normally brings me back down to earth. Just the actual physically being tired. Yeah.
So Chris Hoyer's talked about that fateful race where he won that gold medal, and he beat out the Argentinian, I think it was the German, who both laid down times that he had never beaten in any of his races, and he had to go out, and it was his only chance to win the gold. And he said he did it, you know, and he got across the line, and he was in a complete daze because everything, the last 12 years of his life had been right to that point. and then he didn't know what to do. And he said, I wandered around literally in a daze, just because I didn't know what my next thing was. I didn't know what to do. So I can understand that, you know, you finish the race, that's your goal, and then it's like, and now what?
I've been very vacant. There's been I've fallen asleep about 10 meters past the finish line before. I have been. It is actually hard to take in. Some of the bigger things that I've done, it is actually really hard to take in. You're just kind of going through the motions, and it's not maybe until the next day or even the day after that you really reflect on what you've done and how, you know, what I've achieved. And that can actually, that's a different sort of vibe. It's a different thing. And sometimes people talk about post-race blues, and you know, you sort of you're euphoric, but you're kind of sad it's over. And I think that's where my problem is, because normally I just book another event at that point.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to say, sort of, how long do you leave in between, or is you like finish that and like, right, I need to book on to the next one? I mean, do you give yourself a break, or do you just?
Normally now, I mean, these days it's kind of mapped out for me what the next sort of 6 months are already, so I kind of know what's coming up. But when I started, it would be I'll just book another event. But now it's normally just in the diary. Under normal circumstances, I know how my next 8 months are going to be.
Can I ask, do you have a coach or a trainer or somebody who plans your fitness regime? How does it work?
No, I don't know, but I do have my friend who she was actually local. She lived in Farnham. She's her name's Lily Partridge, and she's a half marathon British champion, and she's also one of the fastest marathoners in the UK. Female marathoners. She won London a couple of years ago. So she, when I go through phases where, obviously this is not including 2020, because I think that there was no actual race goal, so I just kind of relaxed and enjoyed running. Prior to that, I would have in a year, I'd maybe have, I don't know, 15-20 races, and I'd pick probably 1 or 2 which would be my A race, and those would be the ones which I would really focus on, and they'd be the ones I'd train towards. And I'd get my friend Lily Partridge to set me training sessions, and then she'd this would be like, I'll go around Longmore Ranges, which is the perfect training track, and it would be like, you know, 10 minutes on, 50 minutes, and it'd just be, and I'd look at it, I'm not actually trying to get into the Olympics myself, you know. So she normally sets those very strategic sessions, which are normally focused on pace, but everything else I do myself.
That's fascinating that you're working with somebody that you perceive to be the next level up, or trying to achieve at a level which you're not particularly interested in, but you're still working with them and allowing them to help you set some goals. And there's some nice parallels there about business mentors and working with people who are going to challenge you and push you and stretch your boundaries. That's
we essentially we both do the same thing, which is running, but they're very, very different disciplines, and constantly, you know, I mean, it's a different, she's on a different trajectory to me, and mine's completely different, but however the physical thing is still the same thing. So I guess it's like businesses, so it's always good to she sets those goals, but I'm always obviously I'm aware of what other people are doing, and just watching what other people do, and just making sure I'm just, you know, keeping an eye on other people and see what they're doing, because it's just in a way of learning myself from other people. I never assume I know it, because I don't. There's always something new happening, or somebody new who's got a different theory or different way of doing things, and it's always really interesting to keep an open mind. I never ever assume I know what I'm doing.
Well, we have like a slogan, if you like, at the BiZHUB, that we say, no one should build a business alone. And it's based on that, really, in the sense that, you know, you've got to reach out to people and collaborate with people and learn from other people to grow your business. So yeah, it's exactly along the same sort of theory that we kind of run the BiZHUB on. So
also in terms of how I engage with the community, so on social media or whatever, people are asking questions, I'm asking people questions, and yeah, this might be relevant in some way, that building that sort of, I mean, I know it's virtual, but I meet these people in real life, just engaging with people in both absolutely both directions, and it helps build a relationship in that way, which again is really helpful.
We're coming to the end of the sort of interview. What have you got left to achieve? You've run all these wonderful marathons, you've achieved beyond what most mere mortals could achieve. What next for Susie Chan?
Well, I'd like to say firstly, Stuart, that I am just a normal woman from Hampshire. I just like to run a lot, and I do genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that I'm not particularly extraordinary. I just really like doing what I'm doing, and I've just been very positive in my approach to everything. So, you know, if anybody wants to do any of these things I've talked about, they genuinely can. It's just it's very much about it's very much about a mindset and how you approach things. It's not to do with ability, as anybody who sees me running at parkrun will realise quite quickly. It's very much a mindset thing. I mean, for me, it's much more sort of post-cancer. It's much more about experience more than anything. That's kind of the top of the tree. So if it's somewhere new, I mean, this could be somewhere local new. I've had a fantastic 2020 running around local trails, learning and discovering new places. But for me, it's much more about the experience rather than the event itself. However, there is one event which I really, really want to do, and that's a race called Badwater 135. It's probably one of the toughest road races in the world. It's 135 miles without stopping, through Death Valley and up a mountain. So it starts off in the lowest point in continental America, 500 or 600 foot below sea level in the desert, and then you run through a mountain range in the desert, and you end at the top of a road. Basically, if you go any further, you need a climbing license. So you start off boiling hot, and then it's snow at the top, and it's incredibly tough. It's incredibly tough to get into. You need to be invited. I've gone out 2-3 times now to learn and to watch and to volunteer. So maybe I'll end up there one day. I mean, I was hoping this year would be my year, but I don't know what's happening, and I'm not getting any younger. So maybe one day I'll get to do that race.
Oh, do let us know if you do. We'd love to hear about, you know, people who are setting their mind to something and achieving it. That's brilliant. Fabulous.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Susie. We're not letting you go. We're going to upgrade everybody now to hosts. Everybody's going to come into the room, and we're going to open the floor for people to ask questions. But a truly, truly inspiration. Honestly, it makes me want to actually do the park run now, to be honest.
Oh, I'll see you there.
Yeah, I've got my email to say that I can. So yeah, who knows? But really, truly inspirational, and also really interesting as to you know, the similarities between sort of what you do and how people run their businesses. You know, it's all sort of along the same sort of synergy, isn't it?
I think so. I think it's sort of knowing where you're going, and knowing what you want the end result to be. Stuart made that point. I think it's really important. I know a lot of runners in the last year have struggled because there hasn't been that race goal, and they're feeling a little bit sort of lost without having the end goal. But you know, you set your own goals, and you set your own sort of course. And so yeah, I mean, having a dream, that dream is, I never thought I would run a marathon, let alone what I've done. So having that dream and holding on to that dream and setting yourself small goals along the way and celebrating the wins. Those are the 3 key takeaways, I would say.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
Everybody's now in and able to talk.
Hi everybody, nice to see you.
They're all on mute at the moment because you know, a large amount of people with open mics. You're just going to hear a lot of noise. So if you want to ask a question or raise a point, just put your hand in the air and we'll get to you. We've got Lou, myself, and maybe Emma will keep her eyes peeled and prompt us if she spots someone that we have possibly missed. I'm going to throw it over to Lisa first. Lisa was kind enough to introduce Susie to us at Signal. So Lisa, ask your question.
Hi Susie.
Hi Lisa, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So when I decided if I wanted to move to Borden or not, I came along to Parkrun because I didn't know anybody, and I thought, see what this community is like. And Lisa just came straight up to me and said hello. So Lisa was the first person I met. So thank you so much for being so kind, Lisa.
Excellent. Oh, that's good. No problem. The first time I heard about you, Susie, was back in 2016 when you did the 12-hour treadmill.
Oh, yeah.
And you had me hooked there. I thought, how on earth do you do that? And honestly, we've got a treadmill at home and 30 minutes, and oh, I can't wait to get off. How did you keep going?
Yeah, so that was really hard. I'll just explain a little bit about what happened. So back in 2016, a friend of mine is a sports scientist, and I often in Kingston University, and I often go there because they have something called a heat chamber, which is as horrible as it sounds. I would train for my desert races by getting into the heat chamber. It had a treadmill in, and he would slowly get my body used to running in the heat. By every day I'd go in and it'd adjust the temperature up higher and higher and higher until I was fit enough to run in 35 degrees. And he was doing some research into ultra marathoners, which again, it was quite a new sport. And as part of his research, he had to do a controlled experiment, which meant running on a treadmill for 50 miles, and he would regulate everything we ate and drank and took our temperature and bloods and all sorts. And there were no women that wanted to do it. So I was like, oh, sure, I'm fine. And I hopped on the treadmill, ran 50 miles, and then hopped off. See you later, went home. And then later on that day, he sent me a message saying, you do realize if we kept running, you would have broken the world record running on a treadmill. And it turns out, you won't be surprised to hear this, not many people want to run 12 hours on a treadmill. So it was quite easy to beat. There I was at 43 years of age with the opportunity to break a running world record. And so we set it up, and it was incredibly difficult to set up because Guinness World Records needed a lot of things to make it authentic. They had a 23-page document with all these different rules and regulations. We were allowed to touch the treadmill, had to be calibrated. So all these independent witnesses. Fortunately, it was at a university, so I had a sequence of students who came and volunteered their time to witness me. But the truth was, Lisa, so you'll know this, you're a runner. Some days you run and it feels amazing, and some days you start running and you just like, and I had one of those days. I got on, and 2 miles in, I was like, oh no, I'm really not feeling this.
Oh no.
It was, I couldn't not do it. It was running live. I had like all sorts of, it had gone viral. So all these thousands of people were piling on. I was getting messages from like Paula Radcliffe, Piers Morgan retweeted me. I was just like, oh my God. And so basically I had no choice. I had to keep going, and I tried very, very hard to settle into it. And it wasn't a great day. And I just, every time I thought, I don't know if I can do this, I looked over and there's these students, some of which had got up, students at 5 a.m. to watch me run. And so I just because of the amount of pressure, talking about pressure that was on me and the amount of people that were watching me, I kept going. And it was really, really, really tough. And maybe there was a bit of vanity in there somewhere. I just couldn't stop. And it was a really tough day at the office. I got very sick. I got seasick, which is weird because the treadmill was so big, it was facing a wall, and trying doing anything for 12 hours facing a wall, and I was throwing up. It was really, really, really tough. But the way I got through it, which I do in a lot of my big races, is I just tell myself that this isn't forever. You know, this time tomorrow, I always put my head somewhere else. This time tomorrow, I'm going to be in a bath drinking champagne. And some tomorrow, I'm going to be eating a massive, massive plate of chips or something. So I just took my mind forward, thinking what it would be like if I break a world record and how will I be celebrating, and that's what carried me forward, and it was really horrible.
And does that world record still stand?
No, it went completely viral, and I didn't break it. So I broke the world record, but I wanted to break 70 miles, and I was so unwell at the end. I was being so sick. I just shy of 70 miles, and I knew because it was on. They took me straight off the treadmill to BBC Breakfast the next day. And so I can't even look at that interview. I was just like. Absolutely off my head. I was so tired, and it just went viral, and I just knew that there would be women up and down the globe going, I can beat her. And there were 3 failed attempts, and one Canadian lady, I think within about a year, broke it, and absolutely fair play to her. She's super strong. So it does still stand, but I have the certificate from Guinness that is proudly on my wall casually in the downstairs loo.
Brilliant.
But that's that big public accountability piece, I think, we were talking about, making yourself turn up and be accountable for that. So I get it, that, oh God, I can't let all these people down. I've said I was going to do this.
It was too big an operation by that point. Too many people were invested in it. People were coming from miles to come and see me, and I had like a treadmill next to me, and there was just no way I could stop. And I really, and once I kind of got over that, it was okay, and I managed to relax for a few hours, and then things got really horrible at the end. But I was so far into it at that point. It's like, I might as well keep going, and this will end, and I have absolutely no regrets. And I did learn a lot, you know, that it is easier to stop. It's about probably the easiest thing they want to do, but actually not stopping and getting to that end goal is far, far more rewarding, and something which obviously I'll have with me for the rest of my life. So worth the 4 hours of throwing up.
I think Lorna's got her hand up, and she made a comment about park run. Lorna.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say, and so maybe we should have a Signal BiZHUB do a little tour of the local park runs once they start back up again. Can't wait for that.
I'm totally up for that.
So, Susie, I think Lou did ask this, but do you run every day?
I do, pretty much, yeah. I run pretty much. I try not to run every single day. So January, I thought I'd start off January with a bang, and I did a virtual challenge, which was 267 miles, because that number is significant to that race series for January, which is probably more than I would normally run in a month. So I did that. So that involved running every day, basically because I could have run a really long mileage one day and had the next day off, but I decided not to. I decided just to keep it. So normally on an average week, I'll run 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I'll probably give myself the odd day off here and there. However, if I do feel like I've got any niggles or anything like that, then I just take a day off.
Yeah, so the other thing I was going to ask is, do you have sort of routines, sort of set daily routines that you do before you go out running or after sort of exercises, stretches? Do you have the same routine every day?
No, I'm pretty bad with that. No, I do. I've started doing yoga in lockdown, which basically I'm so lazy with the stretching. I'll be really honest with you, Lorna. I don't. Typical runner. I just start off running slow, then pick it up. I do in the evenings. Sometimes I'll sit there, you know, and I'm watching TV and do a little bit of a stretch if things are feeling a bit tight. I don't do that with any regularity, but what I do is yoga 3 times a week, which I think kind of ticks all the boxes and helps get getting a little bit of core strength and the stretching done. And actually, yeah. I'm no good at it, but I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Do you do yoga, Lorna? Are you?
I should do. I know I do a routine every morning, and I do put some yoga moves into it. But I'm rubbish at doing things like that. I'm not very supple. I love running, but I'm just not very supple at all.
Same here. Honestly, I'm terrible at some of the yoga moves. I'm like, I don't even know. I mean, just like, I'm relaxed. I'm like, I'm not relaxed in this.
I can't breathe.
This is making me sore. But I do genuinely. It's like anything. Once the first few ones were just really tough, and then actually I'm okay. And I definitely feel the benefit. You know, and I go through phases where I'm really disciplined with the cross training and with the stretching, and then like anybody else, you know, I get distracted and the sun's out too much, and I do less of it. But I do have various things. You know, if things are feeling tight, I've got like a massage gun and, you know, things to help me stretch. As well, and I do like a Epsom salt bubble bath. That's quite a frequent treat. So I do lots of. I have lots of different potions, and under normal circumstances, I'll probably visit a sports massage therapist a little bit more frequently. So there's things I do along the way.
Do you do the ice bath thing, Susie?
They're great. You should try one, Stuart.
I actually take a cold shower every time. I do. I love Wim Hof. I love the
amazing. Yeah,
the breathing. So that's what I do. My neighbours are quite used to seeing me outside in my pants. Yeah. I love the cold. I went out walking in the snow barefoot, and my family were like, "You're nuts." I
hate the cold. My husband's done a race, an ultramarathon in the Arctic. I just point blank refuse. I hate the cold. I hate being cold. I didn't like it when it snowed recently. Not a fan. But I just like it to be warm and sunny and summer all day long. That's my thing. But I do, if I've had a particularly tough race, an ice bath is amazing. But I've got like 25 layers on the top half, and then I follow it up immediately with a hot bath. And actually, I mean, it really, I agree with you. It really is fantastic. Actually, for you feel great, probably just because you've survived.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
has anybody else got a question. I can't see any hands. Has anybody else got a question they want to put to Susie? No, I have one, Susie. How, if, as I said before, I've registered for the park run, what would you sort of recommend to people that wanted to just, you know, maybe try running? I've never done it. I've never ever run before. What would you recommend?
I would say, well, the very first thing to think about is not to be intimidated or worry about anybody else. So actually a really welcoming community. After my first half marathon that I talked about, I thought, I know I need to learn more about running or you know, find out more about local races. And I went to my local running club, which was Farnham Runners, and I went all the way to the door and I didn't have the courage to go in, so I went home again. And then I went back the next week and then somebody saw me like, do you want to come in? And I was like, okay. But everybody was just really lovely. So don't worry about anybody else. And parkrun is the perfect place to start because there's nobody gets left behind. There's walkers at the back. So if you want to just come and walk for 5k, 3 miles, come and do that, or even just do half of a park run, just come and do that and see and realize that it's not that terrifying. And then if you want to do a bit of running and then a bit of walking, it's all fine. So I would say start off not worrying about anybody else and don't try and run everything, just a little bit. So running and walk, a little bit of a run walk, absolutely fine. And you won't be last. People worry about being last. I've been last. I tried to do a swim run race. I can't swim very well. I'm terrible at swimming. Lisa's much better at swimming than me, and I was last. I was last in a cycle race as well. I was rubbish at cycling. I was training for an Ironman. Terrible. Didn't bother me. You know, we've all got to start somewhere, haven't we? So don't worry about anybody else. And parkrun is perfect because you can walk it if you want to. And if you decide in all of this walking, I'm going to run for 10 minutes, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes here. Perfect.
Yeah. I would really like to give it a go, to be honest. I would, but
I'm going to hold you to that. When parkrun's back on, I'm going to email you and I will stay with you.
Brilliant.
And parkrun.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. I would really like to do it.
Lisa's here as well. Lisa will make sure that happens. We're going to get
Yeah,
you.
I'm witness.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, everybody's witness. Fantastic.
I was nodding in agreement when you were talking about a trail half marathon versus just training on the road, because I went from couch to 5k and I'd been running on a treadmill, and then I did Alice Holt 5k.
Oh.
And the guy who was the back marker was a 70-year-old gentleman who was encouraging me to keep going, Stu, keep going.
It's Alice Holt.
Welcoming, really.
Yeah, Alice Holt's got a massive hill in the middle.
Well, that was it. I got to the bottom of the hill and he said, you can do this, you got this. He said, there are only 2 people in your class at your age group and he's ahead of you. Yeah, and I know you can get him. And he was really, and I did. I ran past him. As I ran past him, in my head, I'm going, yeah. I'm like way back at the back.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You did it. You did it. That's the thing.
But it was really welcoming experience. Everybody was so positive.
Yeah, everybody is. I mean, there's no. I think from the outside, running can seem very intimidating. Any fitness, actually, if you look at it, you think, oh, that's not me, I can't do that. And so it's really, really nice. It's very, very welcoming. And actually, some of those ultra marathons that I do, there's one that starts off in Farnham. It's called Farnham Pilgrims, and I was terrified about doing my first ultra marathon. And I found this company, and basically they're open to runners and walkers. And there's people that just turn up and just walk the whole thing, you know. And at the end of the day, we all get the same medal. We're all, you know, once you go over a certain distance, nobody asks your time. They're just like, you did 35 miles, you know. And there's lots of walkers out there taking part in these running events. And I think it's just more about getting moving than times. Absolutely.
Is anybody else a runner here? I know we've heard from Lisa and from Lorna. Anybody else does? Oh, Jo does. Hi, Jo.
Well, I definitely wouldn't call myself a runner, but a lockdown thing. I have kind of been, honestly, it sounds a bit silly, but I've been running around my garden.
There you go.
I just do like 10 laps of my garden, which I reckon is it's probably like 3/4 of a kilometre. I try and do it every morning.
Perfect.
But I would love to do something like a park run with
yes, we've got another one.
I just think that jump up.
I'm just writing a list here.
Write it down. So there we go.
I would say, Joe, running 10 times around your garden is probably, that's quite every day. That's pretty dedicated. So parkrun will be a breeze.
It's a bit of a big different distance, but I kind of need, I need that little marker. I need, what do I do next? So once we're out of lockdown, I like listening to music as I run as well. So that's another reason why I haven't done it out on the roads. I've kind of...
Yeah. So I mean, what I do is, and something like parkrun, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to line up 4 songs I really, really like, and I'm just going to listen to those and get moving. And it kind of takes your mind off the activity. So yeah, come along. Honestly, it's.
Wait, hang on. Can I just rewind there? You're going to do 4 songs for the parkrun. I think I'll line up maybe 20.
Good point.
Your playlist. Get your playlist in and just
playlist that.
Yeah, of course, because it's a safe environment, isn't it? Because I don't like running on the roads much, or in the woods, because you get a dog running up at you, or so that sounds ace.
It's really genuinely very welcoming, and it can seem intimidating upon arrival, but just don't worry. Everybody applauds everybody else's achievements, and just I honestly, people ask me where I draw inspiration from, or who inspires me, and there's some fantastic elite athletes out there, but sometimes I will literally go to my local parkrun and there's people that have turned up for the first time, and I just take my hat off to them, because it takes such a huge leap of courage to not be in that environment, and then to drive somewhere or go somewhere and turn up and put yourself in that new space, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I see these people, and they think they're not going to run the whole thing, they're going to do what they can that day, and it's just so inspirational. It's just wonderful.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Excellent. Sheila, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, well, I can't run for money. I will do a park walk with you. And I can tell you this, my song list will start with Heather Small and finish with Heather Small. The start song will be Search for the Hero Inside Yourself. And I will finish with What Have You Done Today to Make You Feel Proud?
Oh, there you go.
Brilliant, well done.
Wonderful. Oh, well, to see you there as well.
Well, I'm a bit of a cripple at the moment because I'm waiting for a hip operation, so I'd be crawling.
It's with a new hip, there'll be no stopping you.
No, you're right, because I've always been a walker. I love walking, and my walking pace was about 3.5 miles an hour.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's faster than a lot of ultramarathoners I know at the end of their runs.
No, I love it, absolutely love it, but it's out of the question right now, because
Sheila, if you turn up at a park run, I'll have to turn up for a park walk with you.
Do that, please do. We'll keep each other company.
Support each other. Do a 3-legged one. You can have my dodgy knee and I'll support your dodgy hip.
Yeah. Which is your dodgy knee?
Both of them.
Oh. Well, we'll have to strap your right knee and my left.
A wheelbarrow. Is there a park wheelbarrow? No.
We'll be there.
Hi. So I'm these days incredibly unfit, but back in my secondary school days, I was quite an athlete, and I was the fastest female sprinter.
Oh, wow.
In the school. However, when it came to distance running, I was hopeless. I was I could not do it. Completely useless, just collapse in a heap after 200 meters. That was my limit. Do you think certain people are built for certain things, or do you think anybody can do long distance running?
Oh, anybody can do long distance running. The difference is I can't do short distance. I'm 200. Whenever I have to train around track, I refuse to do anything below 200 meters because I can't do it. So that maybe there is something to be said for that, but it's all relative. You would definitely be able to run a long way if you slowed down, if you slowed a lot down. I mean, Sheila was talking there about walking 3 miles in an hour, 20-minute miling. So that's 20-minute miling. I can honestly tell you there are people that complete ultramarathons in that pace, if not slower. So it's all relative. It's a sort of basically the longer it is, the slower you go. So anybody can do these things. It's just expectation of yourself. I think one of the hardest things, most people when they start running, is exactly what I did, trying to run around those 2 football pitches, is they go up really fast, like running, and then you run out of breath, and you can't sustain it. So it's going a lot, sort of dialing it back and going a lot slower. And run walking as well is, you know, is perfectly is the normal in ultra running for sure. So anybody can do those things. And if you were, I would just like to say, if you were the fastest girl at school, I genuinely think if I got you to a track, you would surprise yourself. I was
a long time ago.
It doesn't matter. I left I had like a 25-year gap between running and running again. And oh, my dogs are about to bark. And there we go. And so I do. If you've got it, if you were that good at school, there'll be muscle memory there. You'll be able to do it.
So we got another person who's going to join us at the park walk run.
I said that.
I've volunteered you now. I know where you live now, and I'm coming round, and I'm going to bang on your door.
Write it down, Lisa.
Oh, I've made a note. Don't worry. I noticed Emma's being quite quiet.
She's disappeared. She's gone away.
I think she had a call. She had to take a call.
Very timely.
Anybody else like to volunteer? No, ask Susie a question. We promise we won't corral you into any extra strenuous activities.
Don't worry. If you don't want to run, it's absolutely perfectly fine. You don't have to run.
Liz is shaking her head. No,
you don't have to run. You don't have to even. Nobody's even be interested in running. It's
walking is fine, but walking. I walk a lot. But
walking, right? Come and do.
I love walking.
Yeah.
Walking.
Come and have a stroll round.
A mile is a mile, whether you walk it or run it. It's still, you know.
Good.
Shayna, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I've got a question. I did a couple of marathons 100 years ago, and I did every so often I get back into running. And last year I was back into running, and I hurt my knee really badly. So my question was not about that, but how do you? So one of the things that came up for me is about feeling I couldn't trust my body. Now you mentioned that you had. You know, that you sort of touched on that when you said about you thought you were fit and healthy and you've got cancer.
Yeah.
I just wondered how you dealt with that aspect, because you must have injuries. They must, you know, you're doing those sorts of distances, you must get.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you deal with your mindset around that?
It is sometimes, it depends. I mean, I've got quite a positive outlook, I would say. So I'm always looking for the positives and for the good. And I think, you know, sometimes you think, what's the worst that could happen here is I make it to the start line and I don't make it to the finish line. You know, it's not, that's the worst that could happen. So I just draw really from positives, from positive things that have happened to me in the past, and knowing that what I can do and trusting what I can do, and just, you know, not being too frightened of failure, I guess. And so on a more physical side, I do quite a lot of sort of strength training, that sort of thing, to help support it, which again sort of builds into the confidence. So it is really a little bit about having just having a bit of confidence in myself and looking for the good things, and not really worrying too much about not quite getting there. I mean, I have finished most of the races I've done, but sometimes there's a couple of times where I haven't for whatever reason, and it's, you know, it's just not my day. But just don't be worried about not being quite good enough to finish. Does that help? Does that answer the question? So my dog jumped up halfway through that.
Yeah, no, sort of. I mean, it was more that in a way with the cancer, that idea of yourself as being healthy.
Oh yeah. Being
challenged on that, because that's quite a big thing, isn't it? If you see yourself one way and then something comes across.
Yeah, it was a complete shock. So I found out I had this terrible cough, which sort of came and went, and it was so bad. I don't like going to the doctor, really, and not because I don't like going to the doctor, but just because I always think, oh, it's just, you know, I'm fine. And I had this terrible cough, and it came and went, and it was really bad. And they put me on some antibiotics, and they thought it's because I'd just come back from the desert and I'd inhaled a lot of sand into my lungs. And then it came and went, and then it came back really, really badly. And I was in Chicago to finish Chicago Marathon, which was it was the last of the world marathon majors. So these are the 6 biggest marathons in the world, and you go on a Hall of Fame, and there were not that many women, you'll be surprised, who hadn't done it at that point. And I was really not feeling well, and my husband was there, my best friend was there, and I said, I don't know if, you know, I don't feel very good. Started running, obviously, because I was all the way over there for that. And about halfway through, I was like, anyway, finished the race. They stuck with me like glue. I finished the race, and I was being interviewed on TV, and I could just, I knew I was going to faint, and I was like, I'm very English about it. Excuse me, I think I'm going to faint. And then my friend and my husband, who knew I can run 100 miles without stopping, were like, something's really not right with you. And I knew something wasn't right. I phoned my doctor. I flew back home, had an X-ray on my chest, and actually they noticed a huge lump in my neck. And it was a very peculiar thing, because everybody was like, oh, it probably isn't cancer. And it wasn't until it was removed that they told me it was. So it was a strange way to learn about it. It was sort of, you had cancer and it's now gone. And so I was sort of left with like rather than having that normal sort of journey of knowing I had it and being worried. And the whole episode was probably only about 3 months. And so it was gone, and I was kind of left with a like, that was, you know, and it did play on my mind. Of course it did. I thought I was super fit, and I'll be really honest with you, the journey, the other side has, you know, I did sort of question whether I could do, you know, what I did before, but I dealt with it by running, and I probably not very sensibly, according to my oncologist, I ran a half marathon 2 weeks after my first operation, and then I did the marathon des Sables about a month after, and about 6 weeks, and then I ran a 100-miler 4 weeks after that. So I kind of buried myself in the running to kind of prove to myself that I was okay, and I was obviously okay. I got it out of my system, and I came out the other side having done a lot of miles, a lot of big races. And on reflection, I think it's because I was trying to prove to myself that I was still fit enough and I could still do it, and I did, and I was fine. And I did kind of bury myself a little bit in the running, and then I realized, okay, I'm okay, and then I had a nice rest. And it's kind of done now, you know. I'm sort of, I got it out of my system by kind of putting myself into really tough situations and going, okay, I can still do this. So yeah, but it was I try not to overthink it, but it was, and obviously I'm quite a positive person. I was incredibly lucky. It was a very easy to treat cancer. Yeah, and very straightforward, very straightforward sort of start to finish a few weeks of my life, which sort of left me wondering about it afterwards, but I don't really think about it so much anymore.
Again, it goes back to mindset though, doesn't it, Susie? That was your mindset. You created a mindset to get you through what you needed to get through.
I did. I kind of, and on reflection at the time, everybody was, it really, because it was never fully diagnosed until afterwards, it was a weird place to be. And I was obviously worried about it, and your mind goes off into sort of really sort of strange places, but I just completely focused on the one thing I could do, rather than the things which might not happen or I might not be able to do. And it's like, well, today I can get up and I can run and I can focus on X, Y, and Z. And so I was very much focused on what I was able to do rather than what I wasn't able to do. I might have over-egged the pudding a little bit. The other side, I don't think you probably would have said it. I don't think you can run 100 miles, and I did. But I proved to myself that everything was fine. Yeah. So focus on what you can. I focus on what I could do is probably the headline there.
Exactly. Yeah. Brilliant. Excellent. Right. Well, it's coming to the end. Has anybody got any other questions? Or Susie, you've been so generous with your time and so open and honest as well. It's so lovely to have somebody here really speaking really honestly and open. And again, it's that synergy between business and mindset and motivation and elite athletes and business owners. It all just ties in incredibly well, and some really valuable lessons that you've said that we've spoken about before in the BiZHUB, but it's just so interesting to hear it from an elite athlete's point of view, is that it's very, very similar, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. I think if you have a goal, basically it's about goal setting and getting to the goal, isn't it? And learning along the way. It's pretty much the same thing. And you know, sometimes things hurt, and sometimes you learn, and sometimes things go your way. But just, you know, staying focused on the end goal
and staying positive, and you know, keeping that positivity and seeing the opportunities and not seeing obstacles. So brilliant. Stu, have you got anything else to add?
Just a couple of comments from the chat. Fiona and John Ryland, nothing to do with this, but I'm going to share it anyway. They've just found out their microwave oven interferes with the Wi-Fi. I wonder why heating up a meat pie and they couldn't hear Susie. I don't know. I made that last bit up. But Michael Stopford, he said, thank you for an inspiring talk, Susie. Unfortunately, he's got to disappear, but he can't join in the running because he's got 2 knackered knees. But he hopes to do a long-standing, he hopes to get to do a long-standing wish of walking the Pennine Way.
Oh, wow. I mean, I'll have to walk that as well, I think. It looks amazing.
Yeah, and Lorna says she's, thanks again, Susie, and we'll maybe see you at the Queen Elizabeth Country Park run when they are back on.
That's a hilly one, maybe. I'll give it a
I've driven past that hill. I don't think I'll start there. I think I'll start.
That's one of my favourite places to train, Butts Hill. I'll see you there.
I walked up it once. Oof.
Yeah, I did.
I do loops of that one.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Come on, Team Signal. We're all going to do like.
Worth it for the downhill. There's a metaphor for you. It's worth it for the downhill.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you, Susie. We know your time is tight today, so thank you so much for spending it and sharing those insights and being such a gracious interview. That's fantastic. I'm sure all of our members are now going to be. Oh, Emma's got before I wrap up. Emma's got
sorry. I'm so sorry that I was listening. I just wanted to say that I was listening to your story. I was having to deal with a lot of other stuff that was coming and going off my desk, but so I couldn't have the camera on. But what an inspiring story. I loved it. Thank you for your energy and your inputs today. Yeah, sorry I had to have my camera off, everybody. But I was there all along.
Did you hear, Emma, that you're coming to Park Run with everybody?
Yeah. I heard you saying Emma's not around. I was like, oh God, what's
we'll tell you about it later.
Find you up, you're in.
Yeah, I get really bad shin splints. I walk, I march everywhere, but as soon as I start running, I get all these terrible pains in my legs. So I just think, oh, it's probably not for me. But yeah,
we're walking
swimming.
We're walking it.
Emma.
Yeah, well, I'll walk. I'm happy to walk it.
Emma, have you ever had your gait measured and proper running shoes?
Yeah, I did. Right at the beginning of lockdown, I went and spent loads of money on a pair of really good running shoes, and I had my gait. I did the whole thing, and I still get shin splints. So I don't know what to do. I should probably just get some expert advice, because I do really enjoy running outside, walking outside, being outside, exercise, all of it.
A good physio will be able to help you.
Would they? Okay. Oh, I think there's a couple of those in the hub, aren't there?
Sure, Shana can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm a web, Joanna.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, everybody, that's a wrap, as we say. Again, Susie, thank you so much. Lovely to meet you, and look forward to seeing you around and about in Borden at the shed, maybe for a bit of a sushi or a bit of a burger as they open. Again, thank you to everybody for coming today. It's been lovely to see you, and we will see you all again next week.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.